Although it's about as controversial as game mechanics get, Fallout 4's settlement building mechanic has generated a whole sub-community within the Fallout fandom space. For those wasteland architects out there, there's nothing more satisfying than spending 24 playable hours building up a self-sustaining settlement full of happy settlers, instead of modding in nude character models and Thomas the Tank Engine Deathclaws. But once you've built at every workshop location in Fallout 4, and have even considered all the various locations in-game that would have made excellent workshops if Todd hadn't been so focused on setting up microtransaction centers for his single-player games. Wait, where was I going with that? Oh yeah. Once you've eliminated all the hypotheticals Fallout 4 has to offer, there's only one question left to ask. What if settlement building had been included in earlier Fallout games? As it turns out, I recently published a community poll, and wouldn't you know it, the vocal minority of you fine people also think about these things late at night like I do. So today's special community request edition of Grey Gaming hopes to highlight 5 locations in Fallout New Vegas that would have made excellent settlement sites, if New Vegas had a mechanic. And Todd let Obsidian put a workshop in there. And they didn't run out of time because they were only given 18 months to release a AAA title. And it wasn't super buggy. You know, let's just get into it. Nestled high above the central Mojave region is Black Mountain. Black Mountain is not a pleasant location when we find it. Hostile super mutants and centaurs, radiation, impact craters, Tabitha, Danny Trejo after he's missed a century or two of moisturizing. Yeesh. But after Black Mountain has been cleared and we find that lovely red drill press behind one of the operations sheds, our new and improved Utobitha has a lot going for it. Only accessible from a single roadway, it's easy to plan defenses around. The peak of the settlement, while pretty small and cramped, does offer mostly flat buildable area. The added role-playing of being able to restart the radio station could have been a questline of its own. Like, to get it running you need to find a DJ, which could be any of the recruitable entertainers, or you could rig the station to act as a repeater for Radio New Vegas, drastically increasing the coverage and improving the quality of life throughout the Mojave. Or if you're going with a faction-specific run, it could start serving double duty as a communications hub or even broadcasting propaganda to the masses. Now, in all fairness, Black Mountain is far from ideal. It's too small to make for an impressive, heavily populated mountain fortress towering above the desert, and it's so far off any beaten path that it's difficult to roleplay as being a well-used trade hub, or a hub for pretty much anything other than radio waves. But the added role-playing it could have brought in that respect would have been very welcome, and if nothing else, it's a place to dump your stuff instead of cycling it perpetually through the Mojave Express like an infinite power meme. Before the arrival of the courier, Niton was a town known for a corrupt, self-appointed mayor that sacrificed his constituents' happiness, freedom, and sometimes even their lives if it meant lining his own pockets. Also a major attraction for anyone who was a love-starved powder ganger or NCR trooper was the fact that it was home to a pair of hookers that worked around the clock for their aforementioned pimp of a mayor. When Courier 6 walks into town, they discover that the town has been massacred by Kaisar's Legion in the cruelest manner possible. The courier arrives to find the Legion still hasn't kicked brick yet, but once they deliver their grisly message to the NCR via the courier, they go on ahead and set off into the Mojave. But once this is all done, the town just remains static. The NCR never sends troops to clean out the town, no passing caravans ever decide to stop and try and salvage the town. It's just a flaming ruin lined with crucified, beheaded, burned, or otherwise murdered bodies. Wouldn't it be nice if after the NCR gives you the middle finger for risking life and limb to reach clear and report on the status of the town, Obsidian had plopped a workshop in a corner somewhere, maybe in the backyard of the Scorpion House. Yeah, if you've never explored the town, there's a house with a cage full of scorpions in it. Naturally, there'd be a lot of cleanup, and the town is actually surprisingly large, so we wouldn't necessarily need access to everything, like the trailer park on the south end of town, or even the business sector that runs along Highway 164. But if we could get both residential sections and the main street, that could allow for all the civilian housing we could need, and for the city hall to reopen as a sort of community center, with all new businesses, schools, clinics, government services, and such happening there. Naturally, the intact water tower would make this an excellent location for caravans to stop and water their Brahmins and engage in a bit of commerce before continuing on their way to New Vegas through Novak. By restricting to just the north half of the town, it would be easier to reinforce and build better defenses to make sure the Legion can't commit Niton Lottery 2.0. Naturally, this feels a bit more on rails than our average settlement building, so maybe in this case we instead go with a more Skyrim Skyrim Hearthfire style settlement where we build in predefined locations, buy supply and furnishing packages, and recruit settlers to live, work, and manage New Niton. Or maybe it would just be nice to demolish 200-year-old houses and build new ones that aren't ticking time bombs waiting to collapse on top of their inhabitants. As is way too common in Obsidian games, Fallout New Vegas contains a rather large swath of underdeveloped map north of Vegas, running along maybe Cheyenne Avenue? I don't know. Fallout games almost never get the layout of their given regions completely right, and New Vegas is no exception. Anyway, this roadway lined with boarded up and abandoned farms devoid of NPCs and almost completely free of enemies is a somewhat welcome respite, but is a pretty clear indication that Obsidian was running out of time to release the game and was forced to leave this rather sizable chunk of the map virtually undeveloped. Almost directly north of the Brahman Ranch is a particularly noteworthy collection of structures, in that it offers a rather diverse collection of homes, outbuildings, and temporary shelters, as well as a water pumping and cistern system, and some very aggressive starving Brahmin. This would be the perfect location for an independent farming operation. The crops are already planted, the water infrastructure is already in place. If you could figure out how to pacify the Brahmin without killing them, you have a free start at Brahman Ranch. You could also choose between demolishing the shack and camper to make way for newer, sturdier structures if you're aiming for social progress. Or you can do the opposite if you're looking for the Sloan-esque shantytown aesthetics. Naturally, there's the option to surround it with a wall and automated defenses, or just scrap everything and build your own Vegas, with blackjack and hookers. It's harder to weave in questlines in this location because this area is pretty barren and out of the way. It's beyond Vegas, so all of the main questline stuff can be dealt with before even reaching this spot, and it's easy to bypass this location if you're following the roads on your way to meet the boomers. It's sort of a non sequitur of a project, an absolute side objective. It wouldn't gain you anything besides some XP and personal satisfaction, sort of like settlement building in Fallout 4 as a whole, so I guess we're good there. If you're enjoying the video so far, this is just a friendly reminder that a like on the video would be deeply appreciated, as viewer engagement is the primary metric I use to determine the sort of content that provides the most value to you, a random person on the internet who has the power to choose if I can afford entry onto the strip or if I have to slum it in Freeside. Seriously, the mods are surprisingly spry and I am very out of shape. Anyway, please, thank you, and now on with number 4. Continuing our farm and ranch motif, Spring Mountain Ranch State Park is perfectly suited to establishing a farming community. Unlike the abandoned Brahman Ranch, no workable infrastructure remains intact in this location, and there's a pretty hefty mantis infestation to deal with before our workshop could be unlocked. But assuming we could scrap the burned out remains of the ranch house, this area is nice and flat, the nearby bighorn herd could be captured and tamed, giving us a non-traditional ranch herd, and the pond offers a freestanding source of clean water. Located directly north of Good Springs, a short detour from the Long 15, it makes perfect sense to establish a ranch or way station in this general area. Before the events of New Vegas, I-15 was the primary artery linking the NCR to Vegas, and with McCarran Airport directly accessible from here, it means that any convoys not destined for the strip would have to pass by this spot, and any caravans heading for the Crimson Caravan trade posts, well, it would be out of their way, but there isn't exactly a lot of water and safe resting places between there and Sloan. So a detour, although resulting in a delay, would probably still be desirable as a means of protecting the pack Brahmin and getting ready to brave whatever fiend-infested route they plan on taking to the CCTP. While Niton constitutes the current safe passage rest stop and port of choice for anyone contracted to supply the NCR front line or just wishing to hit Novak on their way to the 188 trading post, Spring Mountain Ranch constitutes the port of choice for anyone wanting to take the most direct route to Vegas after Quarry Junction is cleared of Deathclaws and the Long 15 once again serves as the main artery of the Mojave. Unlike our ready-made farm, there's a lot of dangerous stuff nearby to contend with. Our close proximity to Red Rock Canyon means cazadors are an ongoing concern, and the gorges and hills to the south prove home to the largest breeding population of Deathclaws in the Mojave, so this location is in dire need of fortifications and hard-hitting automated defenses. The major distinction between Spring Mountain Ranch and the abandoned Brahman Ranch is that one is ready to go, but might offer limited options for creativity and would probably be better suited to a Hearthfire style build, while this area is a blank slate and your imagination is the limit. An unknown to all but the most hardcore completionists, or just anyone who can't figure out how to get Arcade Ganon's quest to trigger, so they googled Enclave Power Armor Fallout New Vegas.
Baby powder made out of babies? You know that it's not.
The Deathclaw Promontory is an unmarked location on the eastern bank of the Colorado River. That's right, we're even talking about settling Caesar's domain here. Deathclaw Promontory, or DP, or not. The DCP is not a place for a pleasant hike. If you thought Caesar's Legion was the only thing you had to worry about if you crossed the Colorado, welcome to the single highest density Deathclaw population of any Fallout game, including a Pack Alpha and Mother Deathclaw. The only reason anyone could possibly ever have to come here is in search of the primo loot that awaits you if you successfully make it to the end, assuming your game didn't glitch out and the loot fails to spawn like it does with half of my playthroughs. But if we had a workshop here, oh my freaking
Adam.
Bordered by steep cliffs in the east, north, and south, and towering over cliffs to the west, accessible only from the banks of the Colorado River from a single steep sloping drainage. Can you say natural fortress? The terrain is probably the least flat of any of the other locations on this list, adding to some degree of challenge just in case you aren't one to build on objectively better in every way settlements. Anyway, where was I going? Oh yeah. Anyway, resting right above the river, water is no concern, and there's plenty of room to build whatever style settlement fancies you, and reports of Deathclaws mean it's unlikely that anyone would be crazy enough to stumble onto your settlement by accident. Now naturally, this is not an all-inclusive list, and these are just 5 of my personal favorites. If there were locations that you would have loved to develop if Fallout New Vegas had a settlement building mechanic, let me know in the comments, and who knows, maybe I'll do a 5 sites that should have been settlements because you asked me to part 2 commenter edition, plus director's cut with DVD commentary. All smart as comments aside, I had fun looking at New Vegas to see where I would like to build if I had the chance, and this assignment was surprisingly tough, way more difficult than I had initially assumed, so it's been nice to look at the map of New Vegas from a different lens than I normally would. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you here next time on Gray Gaming.